we go. Awesome. We are getting up there in numbers. Thank you so much for coming. This is the Getting Started with CodeHS workshop. And today this workshop is running for 2 hours from 11 to 1. We will have a little bit of a break in the middle for you. And then if you could move one forward, Brande. Awesome. So I would like to know some more about you. So in the chat, if you could let us know what your experience is with computer science and what you're looking for in today's workshop. So any experience you have and what your goal is for today. What are you hoping to get out of this workshop today? While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Robin Leslie, and I'm a professional development specialist with CodeHS. I've been with the company for a little over a year. And before this, I actually used CodeHS in my classroom. I was a high school teacher for 15 years up in Northwest Indiana. And I not only used CodeHS in my classroom, but I also used it to teach myself. So I was one of those teachers who didn't go to school for computer science. I was actually a business teacher, and CodeHS was super helpful in getting me to learn about computer programming and then also to teach it to my students with their curriculum. And we also have Leanne on the call with us today. She's going to be helping us in the background to answer some of the questions that might come through the Q&A, and also if any questions come through the chat. And I did want to let you know how the webinar is working. So since this is a webinar, we have it set up in a webinar format, which means that all the participants are muted and the cameras are off. And so what we would like you to do is if you have a question, you can send the question in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. It says Q&A. You can also, if you have a message for our presenter, who we'll introduce in a couple of minutes, Brande, if you would like to ask her a question, you can also put that in the chat. Once the numbers are getting pretty high up there, though, like right now we're in the 50s, the easiest thing to do would probably be to use the Q&A to ask your questions, just because we don't want to lose your questions in the chat with everything else that's going on in the chat. So we will make sure to check any questions in the Q&A, and we will let Brande know. I think that's probably the best way to go since our numbers are getting up there. So hopefully that helps you with how it's going to work today. Again, we are recording this, so if you're not able to stay for the whole thing, we will definitely send a recording out in a couple days once we're done. So I can see lots of you have computer science experience. I see some people who started off as business teachers and transferred over to computer science. Oh, we have some administrators on the webinar with us as well. And then we have some people who are new to computer science. So thank you for coming today. We'll definitely go over almost everything you need to know about CodeHS. There is quite a bit, but we're going to give you as much as we can in this workshop today. All right, so I did put a link into the chat, and I can put it in again, but the link is going to take you to everything that you need for this webinar. It's going to have all of the links to the workshop we're going to have you join, the slides, the attendance, any of those links will all be in there for you. And let me just scroll through real quick. All right, yeah, I will put that in just a second. And then if you could move forward, Brande. Brande's in control of the slides today. You can keep going. All right, so if you don't already have an account with CodeHS, if you're brand new to CodeHS and you still need an account, I am going to drop that link in the chat first, so that way we can get you set up. Here we go. So this link that's going in the chat now, that is the link to get you a free CodeHS account if you don't already have one, because we do have some interactivity today in the webinar and we want to make sure you're able to participate. So that is the link to get a free account. And then this next one is going to be how you can get enrolled in the section for today. So we've created a section for you to work in today as a student, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the section. But so far you've gotten the links to sign up and the link to get into the section that we're going to be using today. You can go ahead and move forward, Brande. So a little bit about CodeHS, if you're new to CodeHS, or maybe you just heard about us. CodeHS is a comprehensive platform. So that means that we try to have everything teachers would need. So we are K through 12 now. So we have elementary, middle school, and high school curriculum. We also offer professional development, and we have just a vast array of teacher tools and resources that are available for you. So we try to have everything you need on the site. And the nice thing about the site is that for our courses, your students don't need to download anything to their computers. Everything is done online. You can go to the next one. And the next one. Nice, yay. Okay. So we finally get to introduce Brande. Brande Johnson is a computer science teacher. She is also one of our teacher trainers for CodeHS, which means that she is amazing and she is going to share her knowledge and expertise with you. So I'm going to let Brande take over. Make sure if you have any questions, you toss those in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate the amazing comment. I will do my best. Like Robin said, my name is Brande Johnson. I teach computer science at a small school in Nevada. I teach AP CSP, AP CSA, as well as a middle school computer science class. I also spent a year teaching K-6 computer science, which was crazy. I actually got started as an ELA and social studies teacher, which I know is a weird way to get into computer science. So kind of a weird way I got here, but love computer science. It's become my favorite thanks to CodeHS. It's made it so much easier to go from a ELA social studies teacher to a computer science teacher. So we are going to start off with some elementary computer science curriculum because, as we know, the earlier we can get them started in computer science, the better. And then the higher our pass rates become in AP. This is my first year getting a kid coming from elementary computer science into high school, and they've done so much better. It's been amazing. So CodeHS has developed this really great elementary school curriculum with lots of interdisciplinary computer science lessons. Everything is built around project-based learning, which is super great for our students. And so the elementary program utilizes Scratch. So it's really easy for students to use that drag and drop based coding in order to develop their computer science skills and learn those amazing skills that we all want our kids to have, you know, the problem solving. Sorry, I was reading the chat. All the problem solving and just like independent learners that we want them to be. So it's currently, unfortunately, limited to district implementations, but if you go onto the link, you can see all about how they're developing those amazing elementary resources. They also have lots of middle school curriculum for you to try. Super high engagement. I can tell you I have 7th graders this year in my middle school computer science class, and they absolutely love CodeHS. It's just so interesting for them to kind of just develop their skills and to see the different things. It's relatable to all student backgrounds. So for your diverse student populations, any kid can do computer science. It doesn't matter how little or how much background they have in it. CodeHS is just relatable to absolutely everybody. There's lots of entry points and ways to accommodate a range of student levels. So if your kids, like I said, are coming in with no computer science experience, or you have kids that are coming in with an elementary background, there's lots of ways for them to transition from that elementary to middle school, especially as they're going from scratch into more of like the Karel-based coding. And it does absolutely 100% prepare them for high school. As somebody who teaches at a small K-12 school, my kids that are doing the middle school computer science seamlessly transition into my APCSP class and then on into my CTE career and technical education pathway. So it's really nice to get to have that transition, and it's so well scaffolded. It's just very seamless for your kids to transition up from middle school into high school. So CodeHS provides a modular solution for middle school. In order to meet the needs of each middle school, they've kind of taken this modular approach in order to create their computer science lessons. Each of the modules focuses on a very specific topic in computer science. Each of them is 10 hours. So depending on your time availability and how you want to do it, you can pretty much create your own content based on what CodeHS has already created to meet the needs of your students. They're aligned to both your state and CSTA standards, so it makes that standards alignment that we tend to have to do a lot very easy. I love being able to just pull the standards off CodeHS and be like, yep, this is how it aligns to everything, and making sure I'm covering all my standards. CodeHS also has 10 new modules. Some are specifically designed for like lower middle school, so things I would do with a class predominantly of 7th graders versus when I have predominantly 8th graders. And then others are designed really for any middle school grade and any middle school ability. I will show you how to get a copy of the standards. It is in CodeHS. They like align it to the units. Robin, do you want me to show that now or when I get into the platform?
We can show it when we get into the platform.
Perfect. I will show that when we get into the platform. It's super easy, and it's just easy because it's already there and you don't have to worry about it. All right. So for your lower middle school students, so 5th and 6th grade, oh my God, that would be so cool. We don't have that in my state. 5th and 6th grade is not middle school. We have Karel Adventures 1, Tracy Adventures, and then you can move your students from Karel Adventure 1s onto Karel Adventures 2. Karel Adventures 1 allows students to learn kind of the basics of JavaScript as they kind of get to program the cute little Karel the dog to do all kinds of different things. And then Karel Adventures 2 allows them to do harder things, getting them more into those advanced concepts. Tracy is this cute little turtle they get to program, and they get to learn basic commands, variables, and functions within their programming. And each one of them is 10 hours. So, you know, for me, that's only about 2 weeks of content. So it allows you to go as fast or as slow as you want through the stuff, but still meeting all of those great standards. In upper middle school for your 7th and 8th graders, you have Exploring Code with Karel, where students learn the basic of programming by giving the dog commands in a grid-based world. They also have Exploring Art with Code. So if you're trying to get into all of those great STEAM projects, you know, you can have your students do art projects inside of CodeHS in order to see how art and technology have integrated. And then you can also do Exploring Game Design. This is probably my students' absolute favorite module in CodeHS. They love getting to learn the basics of video game design and create their own video game. And so they love to challenge each other to try and beat each other's video games. And then we have like a whole class competition on like who can create the best video game. I do not participate because I do not play video games. So I'm not a great video game player, but I love to code and design games. I just don't want to play them. All right. And then, so depending on whether, it doesn't matter if you're doing lower or upper middle school, you can do Exploring Computing, which allows students to look at different technologies and the impact that they have on our world, which is a huge CSTA standard. And then when they go on to high school and, you know, take APCSP, hopefully, you know, they're already prepared to answer those questions about the impacts of computing. They also have a great unit on Exploring Web Design, which is really great for our students in order to learn web development. This is usually where I start with my middle schoolers. I have them do web design first. And just because it helps teach them the importance of making sure everything is spelled correctly and the importance of like context and syntax inside of coding. And this is where my English teacher comes out in me, because I'm like, yes, spelling is so important. And they're all like, yeah, is it really? And I'm like, when it comes down to whether or not your code works, yeah, it's infinitely important. I usually spend a good time of my year 2 doing exploring digital citizenship. In this day and age, kids are on computers more time than they're spending outside. And so making sure our students can interact in a digital world is so important. So do not skip the Exploring Digital Citizenship module. It's important no matter what grade you teach. As well as exploring the internet. Students get to learn about network protocols and different strategies used to protect their online information. And I get to tell them all kinds of fun stories of helping teachers that have been hacked and how they can avoid that and stuff like that. So just kind of making sure our students are absolutely 100% to be active participants in a digital world is kind of, I think, probably the most important job as computer science teachers. Yeah, coding's great and it's lots of fun and kids can learn all kinds of important skills for later on, but those kids that aren't maybe going into a computer science field, those digital citizenship and exploring the internet modules are the most important, just to prepare them for the world. So one of my favorite things about CodeHS is the fact that you can mix and match your courses to just design it however it fits the needs of you and your students. So there are 10 modules throughout the whole course, and you can actually change and move them around however you see fit in order to teach them however works best for you. And so it just makes it seamless for teachers, because you may have a class of students who are like, hey, I've already done this. And you can be like, oh man, it's like somebody already taught this with my kids. Let me just skip this module and you don't have to worry about it. So CodeHS also has lots of really great pre-built courses that, of course, you can still move around and mix as much as you want. Computer Science Exploration 1 is what my 7th grade middle school computer science class does. And so they get to do Karel Adventures 1, 2, Exploring Computing, and then Tracy's Adventures, and then that digital citizenship unit. And then inside of Computer Science Exploration 2, which is what I do when I get them a 2nd year in middle school, is Exploring Programming with Karel, Exploring the Internet, Exploring Web Design, Exploring Art with Code, and then Game Design. And so this is just kind of making sure it's scaffolded, and it ends up being 50 hours worth of content. Some years I get my kids for an entire year, and we can do one in a semester and one in another. And it just makes it a little bit easier for my students, as it pretty much nicely scaffolds everything for them, no matter what computer science background they're coming in with. And every year, luckily for me, it's more and more, because we have a dedicated elementary computer science teacher that they see. So they also have lots of new middle school courses like Python Basics with Tracy. And then that gets split down into Python Basics with Tracy 1 and 2, on the Introduction to Game Design with P5 Play, and then Web Design as well. So lots of great courses for you to integrate with your students. It's pretty much already there for you. You don't have to really do much, which is great. We have enough to do as teachers. All right, so what are your course goals for your students? So depending on if you're looking for an introductory computer science course, more of a focus on programming or another topic like cybersecurity or web design, if you're just trying to give your students as broad a range of computer science topics as possible, or if you're looking for something that's going to be difficult, more advanced, the beauty is CodeHS has it all. It doesn't matter what your computer science needs are. They pretty much built a course already ready to go for you so that you can just do the hard part, which is teaching. The planning of it's already done for you. So some other things you should definitely consider when you're deciding on which course from CodeHS you want to use. Timing, always, that's our number one concern as teachers, is how much time do we have? Are you looking for a coding or a non-coding course? Do you want blocks? Do you want text? I can tell you from experience, when your kids go from blocks to text, that syntax that you practiced in web design is going to become so important, because literally their code can be thrown off by a missing semicolon or the lack of a bracket. And so it's really important to make sure that you know whether you're looking for a block-based coding or text-based. Are your students, what kind of difficulty are you looking for? Are they beginners? Are they experienced coders? And then are there specific standards you're looking to address? So depending on what class you're teaching, like I teach a semester-long computer science and application course that's required by the state. And so I'm looking for very targeted standards to meet that particular course, because they have to have it to graduate. And so just making sure you know what you're looking for, and then you can go into CodeHS to kind of find it. So CodeHS already does the K-12 computer science framework alignment, so you don't have to worry about it. It's also CSTA standards aligned for you. All of them are aligned, and so you can go in to CodeHS and find those. I'll show you where you can find those in a minute. So they also have kind of a strategic pacing guide for you if you're looking at doing like a multi-year program, or if you're like me and you teach at a K-12 and you get middle school through high school computer science. And so you can kind of see where your students are going to be going in each of their grade levels as they go across. And so, like I said, I do a 7th through 8th grade computer science course. I teach AP CSP, and then I teach a computer science, advanced computer science CTE pathway that includes AP CSA. So everything I have is through CodeHS, so my kids get super familiar with it. And so when you're looking at CodeHS, they have the pathway chart, so you can kind of see what it is they have available. And then, of course, the course catalog has just a variety of all the different courses that they're doing. And so it doesn't matter, you know, which particular one you are looking at. You can actually click on it, view the syllabus, and so you can kind of see exactly what your students are going to be doing through each of the different units as well. And then you can view the full content as you go through, in order to make sure you're like, yeah, this is something I think my students would absolutely love or could benefit from. And then you can explore deeper into the module, so you know what you're looking for when it comes to your course selection inside of CodeHS. All right. So as you're looking on to later, you have all kinds of computing idea courses. Oh, if you don't have computer science in elementary or middle school, I guess it just depends. I have students, so my AP CSP class this year is entirely freshmen. And out of those freshmen, a third of them came in with no computer science background. So one of the things I love about AP CSP computer science principles is that your students, even if they're not coming in with a computer science background, CodeHS has it scaffolded in such a way that they don't need to have a huge computer science background in order to be successful in AP computer science principles. So honestly, I don't ever have any qualms about starting my freshmen with an AP computer science principles course. But I mean, at the end of the day, you know your students best. And so you could start with any of the computing idea, like the computing ideas course, if you're not looking for like an AP level course, which is totally fine. And that one starts with like intro to programming with Karel. It's very scaffolded. So even if your kids are coming in with zero computer science background, it's a nice slow intro into computing, and then it focuses a lot on just like the basics of the internet, digital citizenship, digital cyber hygiene, web design. Yeah, it's definitely harder to know exactly where to begin.
Luckily, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Somebody had a question in the Q&A real quick. I guess you had mentioned that there was some kind of requirement for your students to graduate, and they couldn't remember what you said.
Oh yeah. So in Nevada, they have to pass a semester long, it's called Computer Science and Applications. And so it covers, it's a unit of basic programming that the students have to do. And then I start with the programming unit and stuff, even though they tend to push it to the end, but then it's basic like computer literacy skills and digital citizenship. And that's a semester long class that our kids take their 10th grade year in order to graduate, which for my students, they take AP-CSP their freshman year, and then they take that their sophomore year. It's kind of a letdown for them. But if you're worried about getting all the standards covered for AP, you do not have to worry about that with CodeHS. They are an approved College Board course for the AP-CSP and AP-CSA exams. So it is already standards aligned. You don't have to worry about making sure that all the standards are getting covered for AP. So that is something you do not have to worry about with CodeHS. It's all in there. So they also have a tech apps and coding course, which includes programming with Tracy the Turtle, that digital citizenship and cyber hygiene, like just what is like computing and the basics. It also has a web design course. If you have access to microbits, it does have an intro to microbit unit as well. There's also a digital information, and then the ABCs of cryptography, which is super fun for kids if they've never done that. And then just the basics of the internet as well. So a good spot to start if you have to cover the AP curriculum is I just would start with CodeHS's AP-CSP curriculum. And so just because it's already standard aligned, you don't have to worry about it. I mean, that's where I would start. And I just would run it as they've scaffolded it, just because it's really seamless. And it just depends on if you want to do JavaScript versus Python. AP-CSP accepts both coding languages. So if you're looking at like year-long computer science courses, they have Intro to CS with JavaScript, or if you want to do Python, or if you just want Intro to Java, which they call their latte course, which makes me laugh as a coffee addict. And then your Intro to C++, and that's only a quarter-long course if you wanted to add that.
Elizabeth, if you have a question, you can go ahead and send it in the Q&A for us, and we can answer it for you.
Oh, and somebody asked, is there any, it's just whatever you're comfortable with, JavaScript or Python, that's up to you. Like I said, CodeHS already has their pre-built AP curriculum that you can use. So they have AP-CSA, which is their Nitro course. That's a year long. That's the one I use for my CSA class, and my kids really like it. And then you have the CS principles, either JavaScript or Python, both of which are really great. I use JavaScript just because that's the coding language I'm more familiar with. And then they have an AP-CS principles with an emphasis. They also have a cybersecurity unit built into it as well. They just released their computer science principles course using Roblox, which I'm super excited to play around with this year because I know kids really like Roblox. I know nothing about Roblox, so I'm excited to play around with that course a lot this summer. And so, like I said, if you're looking at like an AP-CSP course, it has everything you could need built in. It also gives lots of practice for the performance task, which is really important for your students in order to get ready for that, because it's not just the test. You do have a create task that you have to submit to College Board as part of their score. And so it gives them lots of ways to, like, they scaffold it and build it up. So then in the end, you're all like, oh, now I'm going to put everything together I've done in the different practice ones. And then you build it up in order to get your create task, which you have to give students lots of time to do in class, but it gives them all of that They have the detailed syllabus that you can use for your students. And then what I always do is as I'm planning out my year, I look and see when the AP test is, and then I backwards plan from there, just because there's so much I know to cover inside of that time. And so you just want to make sure sorry about that. Make sure that you're covering everything. And so you just kind of backwards plan from there. If you're talking about the somebody asked about the FRQ, if that's for the CS principles one, because now, because of AI, they have to do the written responses to their create task on demand during the AP test. This was the first year they had implemented that. It has all those like practice questions for the kids. College Board isn't sneaky about the questions. There's several questions that the kids have to answer regarding their code. And so you're allowed to print them out a copy of their code that they submitted. And then they're allowed to use the copy of that code to answer very specific questions that are given out in advance. So like your kids can practice them. You just can't practice grade them. College Board is very specific about like the amount of feedback you can and cannot offer your students while they're doing these projects. And so just be really mindful of that when it comes to what your students, how much you're helping your students with that.
Brande?
Yeah.
We have a lot of questions about APCSA in the Q&A. And
okay.
So can I just answer them out loud really quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so as far as a lot of our courses, when you're looking at, so the first question was, which one is the most current? So anything that has a year behind it, so it will say like 2022, that would be our old course. Most of the time we'll be sending out emails and you'll know, hey, this is new courses coming up. Like we have 6 course launches coming up this summer. And so, and those are all listed even in the on the free PD site where you guys registered for this. But those are always going to be announced in several ways on which updates are coming or what we have updated. When it comes to the APCSA courses, Mocha versus Nitro. So it is the same content. They're both AP classes, but the Nitro and the Mocha are in different configurations. It's how it's taught throughout the year. We recommend Nitro because of the way that it is aligned with College Board, and that's the way it's taught. And so while you can use Mocha if you want to, Nitro is the one that we definitely, that's the one that we kind of recommend the most as far as that. And then the other question about the Nitro is the changes for 25-26. Yes, we are updating things as they go. We have all of our PD courses and our curriculum updated in APCSP this last year, reflected it as soon as we get the changes, we're making them. So we only can do it when College Board releases it and gives us the go ahead to be able to do it. So we do have plans to make the updates on for the 25-26 APCSA as well. Hopefully that answered everybody's question. Okay.
Yeah, even this year too, like College Board made changes to the APCSP curriculum because of the AI issues last year. CodeHS was really quick to get the new changes added and adapted, you know, even though some people complain that College Board released the changes really kind of late in comparison to some of the other times they update. It's usually a couple of years later. So in addition to the AP courses and the middle school courses, they also have lots of great courses if you want to focus more on web design. They have one, a year-long one called web design called Picasso. And then they have, you know, they all have kind of an art theme. And then you have Matisse and Monet. And then they also have other courses with web design, which just kind of builds in some other pieces and parts. And so all of them are project-based that students get to build their own websites. And so they get to learn HTML and CSS. And then they get to create pretty much their own live home pages and use those as a portfolio to show off their skills later on. And so it's really great to watch them develop those, you know, professional looking websites, and then they get to see everything that goes in to building a great site. Somebody asked about cybersecurity courses. I swear I wasn't ignoring you. I was just like, it's coming, I promise. So they have a fundamentals of cybersecurity, which is a year-long course. And so they also have an advanced cybersecurity course if you're looking at kind of building a cybersecurity pathway. And then, sorry about that. And then they also have an Insight cybersecurity concept lesson course, which is only 40 hours. And then a one in JavaScript and one in Python, depending on what your kids are doing. And you can do both of those if you want the students to see kind of the difference between Python and Java. They also have a physical computing course, which is great. So they have one with microbits and then one with Arduino. And so the one with microbit is just an intro to physical computing. It's a quarter-long middle school course that uses microbit devices. And so if you have access to those, it's really great. They're a lot of fun. And then the intro to physical computing with Arduino allows students to utilize Arduino devices in order to give them an opportunity to look at their basic programming concepts. And so they get to look at things like control structures, variables, functions in order to program a physical device because it has like LEDs and buttons and all kinds of really cool things if you have access to either of those. They also have some great interdisciplinary like mini courses, like a coding exploration, one that's a coding exploration in sports, one in art, one in music, and then they have coding in math and science. And so I tend to pull these in later in the year when they're done with their AP tests, because when the AP test comes around in early May, I still have a month of school. And so this allows my students to still get more into some coding projects without having to do a full year-long course. They also have this great one about intro to artificial intelligence, which is really interesting. And so, but in order to do that one, they should have the intro to Python 3 ahead of time. It just makes it a lot easier for them to understand. And so they get to look at the implications of AI on society and get to develop kind of projects that illustrate ways that AI can be used to optimize and predict information. And so I always think that's really interesting. They also have a game design in Unity that's getting a new name. And so there's no prerequisite. They can come into that with no coding background. I see in the Q&A, somebody asked, you have to have a big background to do the mini courses. It's helpful to have some background for the mini courses. It makes it a little easier for them to understand. That's why I do it after the year-long AP course. There's also one on data science, which is super great. It allows them to look at ways that data can be used. And so it's all about data collection, cleanup, transformation, analysis, and visualization, which is big in AP CSP, has questions about data and data collection and looking at how data can be transformed and can be used to tell stories depending on how you want to tweak data. And then they also have a data structures in C++. They should have a full year of computer science in order to do this one. So in my computer science career and technical education pathway, sometimes students opt to take a 4th year of computer science after AP CSA. And I use that with them just because they have, you know, a lot of background in computer science before doing that. And it just helps prepare them, you know, I think, to go out into the workforce. A lot of our students go into a very specific career set if they choose not to go to college after high school here. And so this helps prepare them to go into the workforce and be more effective. If you're in an IB school, which is super cool, they have a computer science standard level course and then a higher level course. And then they also have creating a game in Roadblocks, which is just kind of a month long if you're trying to give your kids a fun extra unit, no prerequisite, no experience required. And then they also have digital art, which is really cool. I plan on doing this next year in combination with our art teacher and having them turn a physical piece of art into a digital piece of art, just so they can kind of see how art and computer science are used hand in hand, you know, especially today. There's so many ways to incorporate. If you're like, this is a lot, I don't have time for a full year-long course or even a semester course, CodeHS provides hour of code, especially for, you know, like if you're looking for elementary teachers and you're just trying to kind of get your feet wet with computer science. There's all kinds of hour of code projects your students can be doing. Robin, do you want to answer that question about the PD membership?
Sure.
Okay. I was like, I don't have the answer to that.
I don't even see that one.
Oh, it's in the Q&A?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll answer it in the Q&A.
Okay, cool. I was like, oh, I don't know. Now, one of the things it seems like we cannot get away from nowadays is AI. And so CodeHS offers this introductory middle and high school AI course. So you can kind of allow your students to get a lot of interesting background into how AI works. There's all kinds of AI projects. My kids are actually doing this for their final right now, and researching the effects of AI in different fields. And so this is so great because, I mean, we've all heard of chat, whatever, and all the ways that AI is used in education. And so just kind of seeing how it works and how it can actually make our life simpler. But then teaching kids to use it responsibly is such an important thing, I feel like, to spend time with. So I've been spending time with this for the last couple of weeks. Oh, I know it's called Chat GPT. I promise. And so I always make sure like my students know that yes, AI is amazing. It does all these great things, but it is not always reputable. I asked Chat GPT for a summary of a book the other day that I had read and I wanted to see what it said. And it actually gave me like wrong information about the book. So we talk about using it wisely and how it is not always trustworthy and how it works and stuff like that. So there's a great courses that if you're really into the whole how AI works and how it can be used for good and bad, you know, I highly recommend it. So I'm going to go through how to go through the course catalog inside of CodeHS. And so you can go in, they have the toolbar on the left-hand side. And so they have a course catalog that you can access if my internet will cooperate. And so you can filter it if you know kind of what you're looking for. If you're looking for specific things like state courses, and then maybe if I just want to see what Nevada has to offer, because that's where I'm at, you can filter that down. If I'm looking for something specific, maybe my middle school class, it allows me to filter out what it is I'm looking for in terms of my class. If I'm only looking for something specific that I want to pull out of a particular course, I can just assign different modules if I don't want the entire thing, which is really nice. There we go. You can also look it up if I want to look at and see lesson plans for my students, especially if I know I'm going to be gone and I have a sub. It's really nice. That is a pro feature though. Sorry about that. Okay, you can also view it as a student, which I absolutely love, because then I get to see what my students are looking at. Because sometimes they'll be all like, hey, I'm looking at this. And I'm like, I don't see that. So it also has lots of resources inside of CodeHS that you can see. So you can see all the different handouts. And then I love it because it tells you whether they're free or pro. And then if you click on additional materials, it has that CSTA standards list. And so you can filter it out. So you can see the standards. So it just makes it easy. Then you can also see solution guides, just in case you're like, ooh, I don't know how that works. It allows you to see all that. So lots of great resources, lots of great tools. So inside, once you're looking at the specific course, there we go. Not my courses. Sorry about the internet being super slow, downside of a rural school. You can also learn more. And so this will give you a lot more details about the different courses, including like the handouts. I make my students have a notebook, and so they have to keep all of their stuff on there. If you scroll down, this is where you can see the standards framework and the alignment for the course. So that's their JavaScript with Corgi. I always love the names they pick for their courses. So for example, if you're looking at like an AP CSA course and you scroll down, if you're looking for that standards alignment, it'll give you how that aligns with the AP curriculum. And so when you're looking at that standards alignment, it'll tell you what the standard is and exactly what lesson hits that standard, or lessons. Sometimes you'll see like multiple ones will hit that specific one. So I don't know how your administration does. Mine wants to see my yearly pacing guides and they want to see standards alignment. And so if I teach a course that does not have this pre-built in, I have to build it from scratch. So it's really nice not to have to do that, just because it saves me tons of time. And then I know with confidence that CodeHS is hitting every single standard that I'm looking for. So having that already built in is just so amazing. And so when you're looking at the course catalog, you can see, so this is the Corgi one, you can see what all the different units are, and you can assign the whole course, or you can just assign a unit here and there. And then the syllabus.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, you're good.
Can you go back and show them again on the navigation where you found the standards?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I'm in the course catalog, and it doesn't matter which course you're picking, if you click learn more inside the course catalog, so it has, you know, you can add the course, view the units. So I just went on the left-hand side on the toolbar, I selected the course catalog, and then I found the course I was looking for. So for example, like AP, CSP, and Java. And if you click learn more, you just scroll down to the bottom after it explains what all the units are, how many lessons and things like that it has. It even gives you like a demo one that I really like. And then this gives you some course resources. And then as you continue to scroll down, it'll show you the standards alignment. And so if you're from North Carolina or Nebraska, it shows how it also aligns with your state courses that you guys have access to. And then it shows you the alignment for the course. And then if you view that, it'll load up the standards mapping. And so even though they changed how the create task is done, the standards alignment hasn't changed in AP CSP. If anybody saw that 2020 note on there. I know they're planning on changing it. I think it's 25, 26. They're planning on changing AP CSP again. And so you can see how everything's aligned to the course and what specific lesson it's hitting. And so like you can see some of them get hit over and over again. And like I said, this just makes it easier for me when I get asked for my standards alignment. And then, you know, once you're here, if you're like, I like that one, but I want to see something else, like maybe you want to see the cybersecurity unit, you can click on that drop down and it'll show you its standard alignment for the different courses. And once you're here, you can click on the different ones that they have. And I love the standards alignment. It just, like I said, it gives me confidence to know I'm hitting everything. It also, if you're building out your like year-long pacing guides, it tells you about how long this takes in terms of like how many weeks, how many hours you should be spending, which for me is really nice. As I'm doing my backwards planning, I have to do some tweaking because I teach at a 4-day school. So this for me tends to be almost 4 weeks instead of 3, just because we don't go to school on Friday. And so as you go through, you can see the different courses that they offer. You can also, they have really cool state pages. If you want to see, for example, what computer science is available based on your state. This is great for more visual learners. If, you know, I'm in, I think somebody said they were teaching in Texas. You can click on your state and it'll show you your state specific courses that CodeHS has designed to specifically align with your state standards, which is really nice. I love that, like all the coding courses, like with the dogs, all the different dog breeds. I need a pit bull course for my dog. That would be funny. All right. Q&A. I do find that pacing tends to match pretty consistently with what my kids are doing. The only exception for this happens in the spring, because this year, unfortunately, my entire AP CSP course was made up of baseball and softball players, and they missed a lot of class for sports. And so I had to do a lot of tweaking in terms of time for the create task, which really bugged me like crazy. So for the most part, yeah, the pacing does match. The only time my kids tend to need extra is in middle school, just because they're really learning time management skills. And the first, I'd probably say quarter of the year, I'm pretty lenient when it comes to pacing and time. And then I become more rigid as the year goes on, just because I'm trying to teach them the importance of time management, so that eventually when they come into my AP computer science class, they're much more on track and making sure they're focused. So yeah, for the most part, their pacing does match. Like I said, my only issue is I teach at a 4-day school week. And so I have to do math and figure out how that computes into a 4-day week versus a 5-day school week. All right. Do I assign homework? Yeah, so usually for my classes, just because College Board hits vocabulary a lot, homework for them is usually doing, making sure they're updating their notes in their notebook, making sure that they're updating their vocabulary list. For the most part, that's their homework. When we get into the actual like course stuff, I'll kind of show you how I organize my classes in terms of, I do move some things in the lessons pretty consistently, like the quizzes. And so usually their homework assignment, if we don't get to it in class, is to do the quiz. And so I move, every lesson has a quiz for the most part. And so I have them do the quiz at home. Oh, that's a good question. Pennsylvania. Where's the state? Yeah, if you, let's see, that's a good question, Pennsylvania. Okay, I'm curious now about the Pennsylvania question. All right, so the Pennsylvania standards. I mean, I'm sure Robin might know off the top of her head.
I don't know, but I am researching it now.
I was like, ooh, that's a good question. I was like, I have no idea about Pennsylvania. On CodeHS's website, it's just the CSTA standards that it's aligned to. But usually they're pretty good about adding that stuff. So I'm sure it's probably in the works. Once you've decided what class you want for your out of the course catalog, you can go to your dashboard and you can create a new section. I love it. I'm a big Google nerd. I'm not ashamed. And so I love that it's already integrated with Google Classroom. And so I can just import my class rosters straight from Google Classroom. And so you can create your section name. So you do my APCSP class, and then you just can select your course. So you can select one that you've already used if you're creating like multiple sections. I don't teach anything more than once a day. So, and then you can just go in and then select the course. And then you can just automatically go in and see. And so it'll add the course for you. Just makes it easier. If you're doing it multiple times, you can just copy the course and create a new section, and then it builds in, takes a second to add it all in, but then it'll have all of your assignments inside your section. Now, one thing I do when you're looking at the different lessons, once they start getting into the coding, there's usually always a check for understanding, a quick little quiz. And they have that right after, and you can either have the kids watch the video, or you could view it as a slideshow. And this is for all the courses. And you can run it through with the kids. Just depends on how you run your particular class. The only thing I always do is I move the quiz for the lesson, whatever that happens to be. You can click on the 3 little dots, and then so I move that down, and it's the last thing my kids do. And that's just because I prefer them to practice a few times and then take the quiz. If you're like, no, they should have gotten everything they needed to from the video or the slides, you're welcome to have your kids do the quiz right after. I like to have it at the end. Like I said, it's usually their homework. And so as you're creating your course, you can either choose the template or create an empty course, depending on how much time you have. And so that's where, like I said, you go in, you can pick your courses, and then you can just add the one you're looking for. And so theirs says add course, mine says new section. It's the same thing. After you create a course, then you're going to create your section. Like I said, it's integrated in with Google Classroom, so you can just pull your class rosters, which makes it really easy. If you're not using Google Classroom, you do have the option of just like sending your kids links or giving them like a class code to log in with, like you guys did in the beginning for this. It just makes it a lot easier. That way you can throw it up on whatever your LMS is for your school. So they can either sign up using the URL, which is their sign up code, or you can just give them, you can send them all out in email if you have them in an email list, whatever works best for you. You could use the quiz as a pre and post test, but you'll have to go in and reset the quiz for your students. You could duplicate it inside of your courses. That's a great question. I think there's a way to duplicate it. So inside of the quiz, and so you can change the point value, you can change how many attempts they get. That's a good question.
I can send out more information on that.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, I don't know that I never thought to use it as a pre and post. That's a good one. I like that. I was like, I may have to steal that idea. Thank you. I was like, ooh, pre and a post test. I love that. And then once you've created your section, you can then manage the roster and see as your students sign into, if you're not using Google Classroom, you can change their password if you need to, and then change their preferred language. This is really great. Last year I had a Spanish speaking student and I was able to change their preferred language. And so this really helped me out because I don't speak Spanish. And so it made my course accessible to a student who normally wouldn't be able to take a computer science class because I don't have the skill to translate that. So you do have the option to change their preferred language for them, which is really helpful. Q&A. How do the assignments look when they pull into Canvas? I don't use Canvas. So, Robin, do you know?
How do they look when they pull into Canvas? Will it transfer over? So we do work with Canvas. You would have to, that wouldn't be a free teacher thing. That would be if your district or your school has a license, and we can work through Canvas, but it does transfer in pretty seamlessly. Will it transfer as a grade for every assignment or one grade for each lesson? No, it would transfer in as a grade for every assignment. Again, that would be if your school or district had a license and was set up with that integration.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the question, can you change the language per student? Yeah, you can absolutely change the language per student. You do not need to set up a separate class for them. And so that makes it just a lot easier. So all the kids would be in one section, and then you can change the language question per student. And then for the Spanish version, I believe it's closed captioned in Spanish.
Yes, it's not, the videos are not spoken in Spanish.
Yeah, it's closed captioned. That's what I was like, oh, I remember seeing it, and all the ones I saw were closed captioned. So it is nicely translated. Is it able to integrate with RenWeb Fax as well?
That one I haven't heard about, but I will look it up and message you back.
Yeah. And then, all right. So when we're looking at the CodeHS activities and assignments, you get to use, oh, did we get rid of the break time? Ah, no, it moved. Okay. Break. Okay.
So let's take a short break. We've maybe this will give us time to catch up on the questions too.
Yeah.
We have a lot of questions and we want to make sure that we get to them all. So if Brandy's not answering them live, many of these questions are kind of questions that the PD department would need to answer. And so we are sending answers back as we see them. So let's go ahead and take, Leanne, what are you thinking on this? 5, 10?
I would say at least 10 minutes. I don't think 5 is long enough for
I don't
this
either.
break or this long of a
Right?
workshop.
Awesome. So let's all come back. Central time, we're going to say it's 12:05. So we'll come back at 12:15. Hopefully that works for everyone. So we are going to pause and we will see you back here in 10 minutes. Thanks.
I'm not gonna lie, Robin, I'm loving the picture of the snoozing French bulldog.
That's Leanne's doing.
It's so cute. Ooh, so for the person who asked that your state doesn't have standards, CSTA standards are I guess the accepted national one. So if you're a student, if you want to use the CSTA ones, they're great. What are my thoughts on the 4-day week? I love my 4-day school week. If I'm being really honest. Honestly, I've noticed less stress. And since going to the 4-day week, like it's nice having that 3-day weekend. A couple times a year, like for Memorial Day, we had to go to school on Monday, or we didn't have school on Monday, but we had to come to school on Friday. So if there's a holiday during the week, you do have to make it up. So that's not fun. Now I hate going to school on Fridays, but it's not bad. I think it happens 3 times, maybe 4 times a year. I love the 4-day week. It's nice. So, yep. And since I teach at a rural school, we went to the 4-day week, so students do sports on Friday, and so technically they're supposed to be missing less school. So. Hopefully that answered your question, DJ. All states should adopt a 4-day school week. Did it work? Are there less absences? Yeah, for the most part, our kids tend to schedule things, staff tend to schedule things on Friday as much as humanly possible. Unfortunately, since our whole district went 4-day, it's really hard to get referees and umpires, I guess depending on what sport you're talking about, when everybody's trying to play their sports on Friday. So our kids are still missing lots of school for sports. But otherwise, yeah, the kids tend to miss less school. Staff tend to miss less school. I like strategically try and schedule everything humanly possible on a Friday. It makes getting appointments really hard. Ooh, do I teach CSP? I teach AP CSP to freshmen. Yes. My entire AP-CSP class this year is freshmen. And my AP-CSA class this year is entirely juniors. So, yeah, if you're in a rural community, I highly would push for a 4-day. It works. Our school days are longer though. Kids are 8 to 3:45. Teachers are 7:30 to 4:20. 4:20 something. I think it's 4:23. It's weird how the math works out. So it's only a little longer than what I worked in a 5-day. Hey. So for Irene, on the standards, they're listed by course. So if you pull up the course, that you're looking at. So if you're doing like the Nitro course, if you click more info, you can scroll down. Bottom and click on the standards and you can view it. And so it organizes them by standards and then it tells you the lessons. But if you click on the lesson and you scroll down to the bottom of the lesson, gives you all the details of the lesson plan. And then it'll tell you what AP-CSA standards they're using. It'll tell you, just depending on what you're looking for, what kind of standards. But for the AP-CSA standards, it'll list what standards. Ooh. So for the question about, are there only district licenses? Nope. I know because my district does not have a district level license for CodeHS. I have a school or a teacher license. So like my district, as part of my CTE, pays for my pro account for just me. Not the other schools. I don't know what they use. I don't even know if they have a computer science course, to be honest. It just depends. Yeah. So for the Nitro question, I absolutely would not teach a computer science because the AP-CSA Nitro course, like I said, that's at the earliest they could take that would be a junior. And that's so I teach a career and technical education pathway. So AP-CSP is my prerequisite. I do really, it's not like mandated, but I do really want them to take AP-CSP and then they take my advanced computer science 1 and then my advanced computer science 2 is AP-CSA. So no, they could not take that as a freshman. I mean, I guess it would depend on your kid's foundational skills. But no, I would personally not teach Nitro to freshmen. CSP is a good freshman level course. And in some areas, it's a required freshman course. Not where I live, but in some places. I absolutely think freshmen without any kind of middle school computer science courses could be successful. Yeah. Like I said, about a third of my students this year came in with no coding experience. And my top performing kid walked in the first day of school and was like, I don't even know why I'm here. Because they did not pick the course, they were put into the course, and they ended up being my top performer. So yeah, absolutely. Computer science principles was designed for students to come in essentially with no coding experience. So I have a lot of success with kids coming in. I only have, some kids coming in with coding experience. When I started teaching computer science, this is my 6th year. None of my kids for like 5 years had any experience coding, and they've done really good. Even through COVID, I was really shocked. I had a 75% pass rate during COVID. So I was really surprised. And those kids had no coding experience whatsoever.
All right, looks like people should be coming back now. We can answer another couple questions while they're coming in, and then we'll get back to it.
Yeah. So somebody asked, what course would I choose for a computer science 9th through 12th grade course? I guess it would just depend on what your kids are looking for, or what you're looking for your kids, and what their interest is. There's lots of great classes, especially if you're not looking at doing an AP level course, which is totally fine. So like I said, it just depends on what they're looking for. If you're just wanting to do game design, there's the game design and Unity one. It's really good. And that's if they're coming in with no experience. The cybersecurity ones, it just depends if you're looking for cybersecurity courses. There's fundamentals of cybersecurity that's really good. If you want them to learn web design, there's web design courses that are either semester or a year long. Like I said, you do not have to. If you're just looking for like an intro to computer science, the intro to CS course in JavaScript or Python are really good. So it just depends on what you're looking for. You do not always have to go AP. All right, so I'm going to go into the code editor. So when you're actually inside the lesson, this is what it looks like for your students. And so I love it because on the left-hand side, it shows them what it's supposed to look like in the end. So it's kind of like a little cheat sheet, lets them know like, okay, here's where I'm starting. Here's what it's supposed to look like when I'm finished with this. The panel in the middle, that's their code editor. That's where they're actually going to put their code in. And then the panel on the right, which has multiple tabs for the students. And so if they click run, it allows them to test their program code, and then check code actually checks to see if it's correct. On the right-hand side, you can see the arrows, the pause. That's if they want to run it through step by step. This really helps with debugging. And so this is where I always have my students start. And that's just, so they can run it through so they can see, hey, if I have a problem, they can see exactly which line of code the error happened on. And so that cheat sheet's super helpful. Shows the end results. Okay, some useful commands that they're going to need for completing the exercise. And this is really helpful too, especially if you're not using blocks, if you're using text. This helps with the syntax and making sure that they're not running into any errors in terms of like the syntax of it. And so this is where they're going to type everything in inside of the code editor. And so they can also switch from text view to block view just by clicking on the gray box. They can also change the editor settings. There's a save button in case they don't have time. And then once they hit submit and continue, that will actually show them what it's going to look like And then they can run the code. They can do test cases. So for some of the different lessons, they have to make sure their code works in a variety of situations, especially if they're using like if statements. And so it just makes sure that they're running through the different test cases. My favorite thing about CodeHS is that it auto grades. So one less thing I have to grade. Students can actually click on the assignment and it'll show them what they're expected to do, just to rehash the instructions. Docs allows them to look at language documentation. So it gives them kind of like a section to where they can pull up, like if they're not sure how to do something, they can look at that. More allows them to see the coding history, the share work. They can view any slides and notes there. One of the features I love about CodeHS is that it actually has a way to block your students from copying and pasting, so that it's one less thing I have to worry about. I know they're not going to do it. All right. Okay. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do a sample lesson inside. So we're actually going to do lesson 1 on the course that you guys enrolled into. So the objective for this lesson is students are going to be able to write their first Karel program by typing out all of the Karel commands with the proper syntax, and then explain how giving commands to a computer is like giving commands to a dog. The computer listens more than the dog does. Okay, so first things first, what is a computer? And so when I do this with my students, I usually integrate Pear Deck with my slides, and so they can actually like put in their answers to the question. And so a computer is an electronic device that manipulates info or data, and it has the ability to store, retrieve, and then process data. And then if we have a computer, what's computing? So programming is the process of giving instructions to a computer. Giving a list of instructions to a computer is similar to the way you can give commands to a dog. So in this chapter, you're going to learn the basics of programming with Karel the dog. And so this is where I go in and I make sure my students are taking notes on the vocabulary, just because it does come up. And then quick little video for students into the lesson. So
We really can't hear the talking in it.
what? How do I fix that? Sadness.
I think if you click the little arrow next to audio, you might be able to do it. On the bottom left, there's a little arrow.
Oh, yep. Can you hear it now? Oh, share sound. Oh, brilliant. Can you guys hear it now? Hopefully, yes.
No.
Oh, well, I have it paused. Sorry. Somebody had a brilliant idea. There's actually a button that says share sound.
Nope, it's not working, but each lesson does start with a video that introduces the new concepts for the students.
Right? I like how somebody was like, it's a Zoom thing. Yeah, I was like, what? Why? I can hear the sound on my end. Yeah, so all of them introduced with a video. You can also choose not to do the video, and you can actually use the sounds. I know, I checked the share, like how Taylor said, like select share sound, and didn't change anything. That's so annoying. Oh, Zoom. So for this particular lesson, So like I said, you can either, like on the teaching side of it, you can also just view the slides. You do not have to have them watch the video. All right, so in our first one, our first Karel program, so it starts with an example. You can play around with it, run and change the code, learn how it all works. When you're done, you can just click continue. And so go ahead and explore this example. So it runs you through how to move our cute little puppy and then place the ball or the tennis ball and then move. So like we said, in the cheat sheet, it should show you exactly what it's going to do. And then some sample commands. And you can click run. You can also change the speed of how fast Karel moves. You can give her a little turtle. You can turn her into a bunny rabbit, depends on how fast. And then it highlights as it moves through. This is a great debugging tool, so you can see exactly as Karel is moving what happens. All right, so for exercise 1.1.4, okay, you have to move Karel forward and drop the tennis ball. And this is your opportunity to play. And so with the quick docs, you can also use that to copy and paste the code depending on how you have your course set up. This helps with any potential syntax errors. I don't know about your students, might always forget the semicolon at the end. Oh, except I want to take the ball. I always remind them to in programming, it can't start with a capital letter, it can't contain a space, and it can't start with a number. And so you can check your code. And this tells you, did it pass? All green is good. Da, da, da. And then it'll finally check it. And then as a teacher, this is nice because, proves that your students did it. And then as you run through it, it has different lessons. Right after the video, it does have a quiz for students to take. These are really short, usually only like anywhere from 1 to 3 questions. And so this is helping them check that syntax, making sure they're ready to go. And so they can check the answers. And then you as a teacher, you can reset the quiz if you want them to be able to retake it. But if you want to modify the settings or print it, that is a pro feature. Like I said, I tend to move the quiz until the very, very end. And then for me, it's kind of their wrap up for the lesson. And this is the point in the lesson where, once I've gone over everything, expectations, what they're going to be doing in each of the levels, I turn my kids loose. This particular lesson doesn't take them too long. They tend to get it pretty quickly. I do not tell them that they can copy and paste over from the side for help with their syntax until way later, just because I want them to struggle through with the syntax. For me, it's important for them to learn all the struggles in an organic fashion. And then I usually have a Google Doc where my students put kind of their warm up and wrap up questions for the units. You can also do this inside of Pear Deck, and Pear Deck is a great tool that's built into Google Slides where it will actually collect student responses and stuff. And so as you're wrapping up the lesson, you just say, what are some of the commands that Karel knows? And so at this point, Karel can move, Karel can take a ball, Karel can put a ball down. And then for the longest time, Poor Karel only knows how to turn left. The dog cannot turn right. And so they also, somebody had asked earlier about homework. Students can complete handouts in terms of like, so writing pseudocode. This is really beneficial later on as they get to APCSA with the FRQs, which has them writing pseudocode. And so this is a great way for students to build on their knowledge later on. It's a good homework assignment for the kids to do. And like you can download the homework and put it up in your Google Classroom. Just makes it easier to collect. Plus it saves paper. You don't have to print it. You could also turn this into a Google form. It's whatever your preference is. So some ways to use the video lessons. You can have them watch it individually. You can even have this as like a homework assignment, like to watch the video the night before. You can also watch it as a class. You can turn it into an Edpuzzle and add it to your CodeHS course. If you've never used Edpuzzle before, Edpuzzle will allow you to actually track which students have watched the video, although it also, you can stop it from, they can't fast forward in Edpuzzle. You can turn that off. You can also embed questions into the video, which is really cool. Or you can skip the video, go directly to the slides and run it yourself. You do not have to use the videos. The videos are really helpful though, especially if you have a student who's absent and missed the lesson, you can assign them to watch the video. So some ways to use the examples. It's a way as an exemplar code to see how the coding concepts work. Also give students an opportunity to practice reading the code with a code tracing activity. And then they can also modify the example by adding a coding challenge. And this just helps, you know, your students so that they have a better understanding prior to getting into the actual exercises. And so the exercises are a great way just to assess your students on their understanding of the coding concepts for that lesson. They can also complete the exercises with pair programming or complete them individually depending on the assignment. For probably the first few lessons, especially if there's like not a lot of exercises, I don't have my students pair program unless I'm trying to get through like 2 of these short lessons in a day. So for the most part, I do have my students complete them individually. If it's a longer one with lots and lots of examples, then I'll have my students pair program. But for the most part, on short little lessons like this, I would not have them pair program. All right. So looking at the lesson plans, the lesson plans are great. They have discussion questions. They have suggestions for class openers and closers. If you like to use warm-ups and wrap-ups, they have those already built in, so you have the questions. It also has really great suggestions for how to structure the lesson, as well as somebody had asked about pacing. It helps like pace it because it gives you like how long you should spend on things, which is really great. There's also solution references in case you're stuck and you're not sure why a student's code isn't working. You can actually see the solution. It also has accommodations in case you have English language learners or students with IEPs or 504s. It can help you with the accommodations. And then each of the lessons also has the standards alignment. So when you're inside of the assignment on the teacher view, the little purple box with the piece of paper, that will pull you into the lesson plan. And so it allows you to see what the objectives are, how everything's going to look. If you don't want to do the video, you can either view the slides or print the slides if you have the pro account. Otherwise, you have to do the video. And then you have the solution reference for the quizzes is a pro feature, but for the program, it's not. And then you have the problem guides just to kind of look at the lessons. You also have the handouts, which is great. There's pre-tests inside of some of the lessons. And then you have of course, the student copy of the handout and the teacher. There's also sometimes there's textbook resources depending on the course. And so if you click on the textbook resource, students can actually go in. You can also assign this reading, have students take notes on it, that kind of stuff if you're looking for homework. It does have some planning notes. These are just kind of tips and tricks to help you prior to completing the lesson. And then you have the teaching and learning strategies.
Brande, someone did ask if you yourself have students keep a journal of commands or documentation.
I do, yeah. So I have my students at the start of every year, I have my students create I give them a notebook. And so my students have to use their notebook where they write down like a list of code they've used, especially when we're doing HTML and C++, or not C++, CSS. And that way my students can go in and see like what each of the commands do. And so essentially they just create almost like a table. And so some of my students do that in their notebook. Some we have like a digital one that the class creates and that they all share access to. Sorry, my computer's decided to die.
The other thing too, once you get all set up, is if you would be able to go back into the IDE and show them where the solutions are for everything.
Wow.
Oh, you're back. We just can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
And then I wasn't sure if you were able to hear me about just going back
about the
and
solutions.
showing them. Yeah, the stuff under the more tab.
So for the solutions view, scroll down to the solution reference. This will let you see what the solution code is and then whether or not they got any starter code. Some of the lessons, the students get like the basics, like it'll start them out, but then the kids have to finish it. And so this allows you to see what it is, like what it should look like when they're done with it. For the first few lessons, you know, the starter code is pretty basic, but as you get in, it gets pretty complicated. And so from here too, if you have students that are working back and forth on different lessons, you can actually just click on the different ones and it'll show you. So like, for example, this like starts them off as a function and then they have to code inside the function and then run the function. And so this way students, or you can see and move through the different solution guides. You can see what all you have access to. And the solution guides, I'm not gonna lie, have helped me, especially in the beginning years when I did not know what I was doing when it came to coding. Because like I said, I was an ELA, I'm still in ELA and social studies teacher on top of computer science. And so it has saved me more times than I can tell.
Would you be able to show them again where you found the lesson plans?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when you're inside the assignments for your course and you click on, so we were just doing 1.1. If you click on the purple little piece of paper over here, that's the lesson plan. This is really helpful too. If you have a sub, you can actually like, you can either copy and paste it or print it just so the sub knows what they're doing, or at least can kind of help the students. You also have the modifications. So these are, it has a modification for your more advanced students, and then your students needing additional support, and then your English language learners. And that to me is really helpful. And then it has your standards, to your CIW standards or your CSTA standards. Really makes it nice and easy. And I like the color coding of it. So when you have the lesson, it has the video, the green is the quiz, then you have the example, the orange ones are your exercises, and then you have some troubleshooting strategies as well to build it through. The lesson plans just help you break down everything. So especially I noticed in the chat, some of the people had said they didn't have any coding experience. You don't need to, which is great. And this way you can make sure, like, even if you're not the most confident, this might be your first year teaching computer science, it helps you in order to make sure. And then, so what are some routines you currently use in your classroom that can be used in CodeHS? Well, you have like bell ringers. Like I said, it has questions like that scaffold into the lesson, of course. It's got the videos. This worked out so well for me this year because I had a visually impaired student. And so the videos really helped them just because they were able to see it more clearly. And then you also have the examples, which are great, tons of exercises, which if you feel like there's a lesson that just has too many exercises, you can delete those. There's also offline activities, like the homework and the handouts that you can give your students. There's all kinds of things that CodeHS can do inside of your classroom. And so some ways you can alter the lessons. You can either teach through the CodeHS slides, you can add slides to your own presentations. You can have the students watch the videos either in class, individually. It just depends on what you'd like your students to do. You can assign it for homework the night before. That way they come in already knowing what it is they're going to do. And so that's up to you. Exercises can be done individually. They can be done in small groups. You can use pair programming. That's your choice. The examples I really like because it just helps the students know, okay, this is what, it's supposed to look like. Here's how this is going to work. And then they have the lesson openers and closers, which are really helpful. And like I said, if you're doing slides, you can use Pear Deck. And so you can actually have them answering that inside of your slide. You can also embed questions inside the video if you're using Edpuzzle. The one thing I do is I do move the quiz until the end. I just want my students to have practice with the examples and exercises prior to doing that. There's also a mobile exit survey, and then they have the worksheets and the handouts. So all of those things are inside of the lesson. It just really helps you, like, yeah, CodeHS builds everything and you could just use it as is, but also it's just the customizable feature for me is really what sold me on CodeHS, if I'm being honest. And just because, I always worry, am I meeting the needs of my students? How do I make sure my computer science curriculum is accessible to all my students? And so having those modifications already built in just was a huge weight off my shoulders. I'm not gonna lie. All right, any questions?
I think we finally caught up with the questions.
I know there's so much because I'm like, this is just like CodeHS, all of it, as opposed to like one particular course. It's like all of it. All right, so we're gonna go through customization. So particularly the assignments page. So inside of the assignments page, you have this edit button. And it allows you to, if you want, you can remove content from your CodeHS course. If you're just like, either you don't have time for it, or for example, if there's like too many examples or too many exercises, you're running short on time, you can click on the 3 tabs on that lesson and you can remove it. And you can also move it up and down. So for like the checking for understanding, I move that all the way down to the bottom. So it's the last thing my kids do. So you can edit it. You can also add supplemental material. And so you can actually search for content on the assignments page, and you can add like supplemental lessons. This is especially great if like your kids are done and it's like they've finished the AP test and most of their stuff's done, but you still like me and you have another month with them. You have to give them something to do. My boss will not just let them have a month-long study hall. And so this allows you to add supplemental material in order for your students to still, be learning for the rest of the school year. So you can add additional CodeHS content from the course catalog. If you want something that's already built for you, they have those supplemental materials built in. So if you go into the assignment, you can scroll down and then you can click on the search for content. It already has some like recommended supplemental materials that it's like, hey, you did this. Now here's some cool things that you can add into your class. And so you can also search their catalog. And then because, CodeHS isn't just like, hey, this is all we're going to give you. You can also create your own content, which is amazing. So like if there's something specific you really want your kids to do and you have this brilliant idea, you can actually add your own activities inside of CodeHS. You can add more free response questions if you want to integrate more writing. You can add flip grids. You can do screencasting. You can do Google Drawing as a form of journaling. If you're into choice boards, you can give students choices in their lessons. You can do some scenario-based activities, all kinds of things. So, obviously, CodeHS has created a great product. They wouldn't still be in business if they didn't. But you can add your own stuff. So you can add your own content in here. If there's like something you want your students to do, you can add an assignment. You can tell it which lesson you want it to go with, which module, which lesson, and you can create your own custom content inside, build on the great things that they're already doing and put your own particular spin on it, which for me is great. I always want to add stuff. You can also do like Poll Everywhere is integrated, Slido. You can create your own CodeHS quizzes. You can also do Quizlet, quizzes, Kahoots. I love doing Kahoots, especially prior to like the end of unit exam. And so having your kids integrate all that as well, plus Kahoots is just fun. You can also add your own whole modules if you want, as well as your own lessons and assignments. So, you can take stuff out, you can add stuff. The possibilities are just absolutely endless. You can also copy and add existing CodeHS quizzes. Like I know somebody had asked it about a pre and a post quiz. You can absolutely add an additional quiz. Not a problem. It gives you a good understanding of whether or not, adding more quizzes, you can see really what your students know and don't know. Is there a final exam? Yes, there is a final exam. Is there usually a midterm? No. What I do, because I am required to give midterms at the end of the semester, it usually ends up being wherever we are at that time, especially for my AP classes, just because I'm never at a good spot when my semester ends. So it's usually whatever the ending lesson we're on or whatever project comes along with that particular unit. I try and be at the end of a unit at the end of the semester. So I tend to just use whatever we're currently working on, but you could create your own midterm. Absolutely. You can pull in questions from the quizzes that they've taken so far, and you can add your own midterm if you want to. Okay. Now, while CodeHS is absolutely amazing for our students, I feel like it's even better from the teacher standpoint. You can have conversations with students. And so your students can actually send you messages inside of CodeHS, and you can have conversations, especially if they don't get something on a particular lesson. That's already in there. So you can actually use the conversation icon from your student roster. So you can actually just start having conversations with your student, especially if you have a student who's only 7% of the way through the course, and then you have another student who's 87% of the way through the course. You can have a conversation like, hey, are you stuck on something? Is there anything I can do to help you? You can also send announcements to your entire section at once. Let them know what's happening, things that are going on, which is really helpful. Just extra ways we can communicate with our students. They also have code review. And so like your students can actually say, hey, they're having a hard time. And so you can actually review their code and stuff like that. Sometimes I've had my students where their code works and it gets the job done. Is it exactly what CodeHS thought it should be? Sometimes no. Sometimes their brains just work differently. And so you can award them full credit and stuff by reviewing their code. So in the free feature, you can use the grade tab from the student's code editor to grade their assignments. That is a free feature. Inside of the grade mode, you can award them full credit. It does have, you can do like fast grading where you're just like, yep, looks good. And stuff. They also have canned responses that are built in if you don't want to like type in your own custom responses. Now, one feature I particularly cannot live without, and part of the reason why I'm willing to pay so much for the pro feature, is the gradebook. Okay. My learning management system is not, or my student management system is not integrated with CodeHS. And so I have to like shuffle my grades over and whatnot. And so by having the gradebook, this is so much easier for me to see exactly how students are doing and to like fast grade an entire class's worth of work. I also love that it color codes it for me. You can weight your grades. I mean, it essentially does everything a gradebook could do. And then you can also turn off what students can and can't get points for. Students could then also view their grade report if you want them to. I love the penalized late submissions if you assign due dates to things. All of those things are part of the pro feature for the gradebook, but it's something I can't live without. You also can get support inside of the CodeHS portal, which I really love. You can chat with the support team at any time. And so on CodeHS, there's this little chat icon. And so you can actually ask for support at any time. So like if a lesson's not working or you don't know how something works, you can chat with them and they get back to you really fast. I've always been really impressed when support gets back to me, usually within like an hour or so. They also have knowledge-based articles. So if you're not sure how to do something, you can browse the topics inside of the support tab. And this way, if you're waiting for support to get back to you, but you just want to look it up on your own. They also have a teacher forum, which is great. And I highly recommend.
I just answered the announcements question. It was
cool.
all Q&A. So yeah, if you want to send an announcement to students, you can select one student, you can select to send it to the whole class. And then there's an option for you to also email it to them at the same time if you click the little check mark. So the announcements would show up at the top of their page. And then if you click to email, it would also be sent to them. All right. Any other questions, or is there anything you would like to see again? And then in the meantime, while you're doing that, some people did ask if they would get a certificate for attending. So I am going to add into the chat the link for the attendance. And so if you click this attendance link, then it will mark you as being attended, and then you will get a certificate. So let me put that in there. There's the attendance link. And then another link that I wanted to give you would be a link to our webinar survey. It's a very short survey, but it would help us out a lot if you took the survey and let us know if there were other things you wanted to see, how we did, just so we can get some feedback about this webinar to make them great for you whenever we have them. And I don't see, oh. Who do we contact to get a pro quote? So I can actually put the link in for you. All right, here's the link if you would like more information about having a pro account. And then when you click that link, there'll be a green button that says request a quote. And it also just gives you more information about what's included with pro. So you can do that as well. Okay. Someone asked if the conversations can be disabled. I was looking around, I couldn't find it. I can continue looking, but the conversation tab, could you go to the conversation tab for me, Brande? The conversation tab is used for students to ask the teacher a question. And so it's really helpful. Oh, if you just go into your section, like any section, and then click on one of the assignments. Yep, then on the left, just click assignments. Yep. We have all new navigation, so we're all getting used to it. And so if you could just click on Programming with Karel and open it up, click on one of your lessons. The exercise, yeah. You can just click it to open it. Yep, okay. So if you go up to the top where it says more and then conversation. So what this is if a student is working and they had a question, they could just type their question right in there and hit send. And then the teacher gets a message that says, this student had a question. And so the nice thing about using the conversation tab is if the teacher clicks on the message, it takes them directly to this assignment. And they're able to provide feedback to their student right in the message box. And so instead of a student emailing you and saying, I couldn't figure out 1.1.4, and then you're like, okay, and then you have to go digging around. The nice thing about this is if they send you a message, you open it up right in there. So it's super helpful. Somebody else also asked about if you could see your students typing in real time and then maybe be able to be on there with them typing and things like that. That is actually coming. That's something that our engineers are working on right now. It's in beta, so that look for that to be on the horizon. Thank you, Brande. And then Brande did put up some upcoming webinars if you're interested in any of these: Python, cybersecurity, efficient lesson planning, and then we have 2 for game design. You would just go to codehs.com/free PD. And if you register for an event, and you're not able to attend the event, the recording will still be sent to you. So I had some people asking if they would still be able to get access to the recording if they registered and did not attend. Yes, you definitely would. Awesome. And then we just have, if you're interested or want to learn more about CodeHS to bring it to your school or district, this is the link that you can use, and I will put this in the chat for you. Don't forget before you leave to click the attendance link. And also if you could fill out the webinar survey. Date, time stamps of when they worked on it. Yes, yeah, if you go to the history area under conversation, you can see exactly what your students typed, what time they typed it. It's very cool. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Melanie. Brande did an amazing job. She's a wealth of information.
Sorry if I talk quickly. It's so much information.
It is a lot of information, which I'm glad we recorded. Then they can look back. Very nice.
And with
All
the
right.
conversations too, like one thing, I know I was nervous at first about conversations, but it's only like a one-way communication. They can only talk to you. They cannot talk to your like classmates. So they're not using it to like chat with each other.
No
So
chat.
if that was the concern.
They have enough avenues to chat.
Yes.
They don't need another one. Yes. You're welcome, Taylor. Thank you. Awesome. We got about another minute. If you have any questions, we're here for you. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. All right. No questions in the Q&A, no questions in the chat. We made it. Thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Brande, so much. You were amazing. And we look forward to seeing you all at another free event. See you later.